Hello and welcome. A Russian general has painted a devastating picture of the Russian situation behind the front lines, so not along the front line itself, but more in the rear areas, while Igor Gerkin, also known under his nom de guerre Strelkov, is giving us another insight, at least from his point of view, about the situation in Russia. According to him, parts of the Russian leadership want to deliberately lose the war to get rid of Putin. We also have some reports about developments along the front line, some minor good news for Ukraine, but we'll talk about this in this situation report, so stay tuned. In my last situation report, I talked about the message. I referenced a Telegram channel according to which Ivan Popov was released of command after demanding troop rotations of his forces in western Zaporizhzhia. I only had a Telegram channel to reference to, which seems to be well informed, but it wasn't clear evidence. But by now, like 2.5 hours after I made that situation report on Wednesday, the audio message came out that was leaked. He sent that to acquaintances, to colleagues, etc., probably expecting it to be leaked, and we'll go into that audio message here while I turn off the camera so you can read in the background while I summarize what he basically says. He calls himself Spartak. That's his call sign according to Spartacus, and his people gladiators, obviously taking reference to the Spartacus uprising in the Roman Empire, where the slaves and gladiators fought the government. He's now definitely being released, and General Tantelman has taken over command from him. He has not been given a new job, so he's de facto suspended, and he says it's punishment for having told the truth. He says he emphasizes that he always worked on reducing the differences and the distances between regular soldiers that he again calls gladiators, as well as the field marshal, basically saying that he tried to be as close to the guys on the front line as possible. He shows himself, he paints himself in a picture as a man of the people, as a soldier's soldier. He said he only had the choice to keep his mouth shut and to report upwards what they wanted to hear, or to tell the truth. But he didn't have the right to lie in the name of the soldiers and the fallen, so he named all the existing problems, especially in regards to combat and to the supply situation. He said that there are massive problems with counter-battery fire, and that the reconnaissance for the artillery is causing serious problems. The numbers of losses in fallen and maimed by the Ukrainian artillery are immense, and he reported the problems to the higher ups, probably Gerasimov and Shoigu, and that has led them to see him as a danger. Before, it was said in that said Telegram channel that he asked to have troops sent back from the front line, withdrawn from the front line for a troop rotation. And he said, while the army has not been crushed, has not been pierced in the front by the Ukrainians, now they are attacked in the back by their chief, a traitor and a kanai, an insult, basically. Here, a scoundrel. We have it calling here in this regard. So if we take this situation and we take what he said in face value, he's basically saying that the operative decisions are being made not by the officers and in place that know the situation, but in far higher instances in this regard by Gerasimov and Shoigu. This is a clear problem that is referenced again and again in the Russian command structure that has very little flexibility, and orders are handed downwards, and the abilities of commanders along the front line to make their own decisions are fairly limited. Popov will likely try. He must have known that this message is going to get leaked. So the intention here was probably to reach Putin with it and achieve the necessary changes. This has precedent. In March 2023, Colonel General Mikhail Teplinsky did the very same thing, basically, or something similar. He withdrew from his job as the commander of the VDV by after saying that the VDV is being used as stormtroopers and basically cannon fodder along the front line, which is not adequate for a well-trained, highly trained unit like the VDV. He managed to achieve changes with that and is now back in his job as the leader of the VDV. Popov will likely try to copy that by causing an outcry, because now his message is being spread around and talked about by anyone. And after Teplinsky and Prigozhin, he's now the third higher, if we want to call Prigozhin one of them, higher military leaders, who is massively attacking the rigid command structure, who is going out of line to achieve something he seeks necessary, and basically attacking the top. This shows that the command structures are fragile, and that order is falling apart within the Russian military. That Popov was taken out of command shows that Russia clearly has no reserves. Otherwise, Gerasimov would have simply done what he needs. Before the war, at least before the war, Gerasimov was well respected by his Western counterparts. He was seen as competent. So, and it's not, you don't need to be a general, you don't need to be a flag officer to know that combat efficiency dies down, diminishes, is decreasing the longer a unit is along the front line. Rest and recuperation is a well-established thing in the military, because it's basically as old as warfare itself. The knowledge that you can't fight 100% of the time without losing strength, without losing efficiency. So it's necessary to take troops out of the front line after a certain amount of time, to allow them to sleep in a proper bed, to not be worried about a sniper every single second, to do deeper maintenance of their equipment that they can't do along the front line, etc. That Gerasimov refused this, despite it being basically a military 101, shows that Russia has no reserves to do that with. That doesn't mean they don't have any reserves at all. It's quite possible, I would say it's fairly likely, that they still have reserves in the backhand, but they are meant as like the fire brigade. If the Ukrainians have some local successes, probably some well-trained troops that then will attack that spearhead of the Ukrainians, trying to stop them. But if they are rotated in the front line, they will suffer losses, they will suffer attrition. So Gerasimov wants to keep them out. That is my interpretation, and the only way I can understand that, because rotating troops is standard military procedure. It's absolutely necessary, and the Ukrainians do it all the time. They keep doing it all the time. So when the Russians don't do it, the most logical reason is that they simply don't have anyone to rotate in place. This also shows us, when we talk about the other things, he said that if we want to summarize the issues, basically there are no reserves. The strict command structures are hampering the Russian successes. He mentions the problems with the Ukrainian artillery, that they suffer tremendous losses, that their own counter battery fire is ineffective and doesn't work. And it basically, the result of this is experienced soldiers stay on the front line until they are used up. This must be devastating for the morale if you know that your only way out of this is in a coffin, maybe on a stretcher, or if you win the war. And if you do that in a war that will not be over by December, by Christmas this year, to reference 1914, then this can only hurt the morale really hard. That a soldier who would probably be called a soldier, and the military bloggers agree with that he was intelligent, caring, competent, that somebody like this is being taken off of his command for voicing the problems must be a massive blow to the morale of the Russian soldiers that are along the front line. If the guy who takes care of you, who wants you not only to succeed but also to survive, if that guy is being taken out, what does that mean for you and your life? So overall, this is a devastating sign for the Russian situation behind the front line that obviously should give hope to the Ukrainian side, that if they manage to break that wall that is in front of them, that there will be nothing behind it to stop the flood that will then break free. We have a message from Strelkov, or Gerkin. He is saying that, as said, basically parts of the elites helped Prigozhin with that uprising and that they partially succeeded. The clique around that is supporting Putin, among them Shoigu, is weakened, and they do this so because they realize they need to accept defeat and transfer supreme power to a successor. So only by forcing Russia to fail, to accept defeat, Putin will be able to replace, and he thinks Kiriyenko or Prigozhin might be one of the candidates. The interesting part is also he says that they are sabotaging Russia's war effort by slowing everything down to prepare the army, the rear areas, the industry for a long, hard war, and to either not do it or slow it down as much as possible. Gerkin is an ultranationalist hardliner. He was involved in the war in 2014 and 15. He wants Russia to win, and he believes Russia is on a holy mission. He supports the war, but he's highly unhappy with how it's progressing. He is a highly valuable source for observers, because while we exactly know what he thinks, the fact that he's unhappy with the proceedings of the war leads him to publish analysis without taking any prisoners. This led to us in the past that his analysis of his predictions of coming Russian defeats were more or less on the point. He's one of the most accurate his predictions are among the most accurate in the sphere, despite him wanting to win Russia. That's why we're referencing him here again and again on the channel. But let's go to the developments along the front line. North of the Seversky Donetsk, we have reports that supposedly the Russians took Novoselivsk. We have Riba here saying they took it. We know that in the past they managed to cross the road and railroad line here. Whether it's taken now is unclear. They say it's taken, but even they say it's not been confirmed. So according to Riba, it's still possible that this is fake news. I have not seen any visual evidence yet, and from a source criticism point, obviously we don't take success messages from the Russian sources as credible as them admitting defeat. So in this regard, it's possible that Novoselivsk has fallen, but we have no proof whatsoever. Further south, we have the report from Serhiy Cherevati. Colonel Serhiy Cherevati is the speaker of the Eastern Forces of the Ukraine here, and he says that the Russians are building up troops in the Kremina-Liman area in the axis to push towards Torske. This is, we can expect further massive attacks here, likely to fix Ukrainians there and to force them to send reinforcements. And to a certain degree, their attacks are becoming a problem, because we've seen in the last situation report geolocalizations of the Russians having reached the outskirts here. The map isn't updated there yet. They might have been pushed back in the meantime, but as we can see, the roads down here are important for more or less that area north of the Seversky Donetsk. Should Torske fall, then it's possible that this part of the front line here collapses in the Serebyansky forest. Not an overall disaster, but definitely not something that the Ukrainians are happy with. So they might actually be forced to send in reinforcements. We will just simply have to observe. Further south at Bakhmut, I found some pro-Ukrainian sources claiming that the Ukrainians have had big success here south of Rostolivka. They have almost reached Yakovlivka. So basically this area here more or less is liberated by the Ukrainians yet. I have not seen the necessary proof for that yet, so maybe it's true, but I can't confirm it. I've seen that from sources that in the past have mentioned Ukrainian successes that never existed. So I'm highly doubtful. I'm doubtful enough to say that it's possible that they achieved something there, but I don't have any confirmation that I consider credible enough. What we do have, though, is success in Klishchivka. Now, the extent of this success is not fully known yet. We take here a Russian source, Voenko, and they said the western outskirts of the village are basically reached, as well as the forest plantations. So according to Voenko, pro-Russian Telegram channel, Klishchivka should be reached the outskirts. We had the fighting on the ridgeline here, which is dominating the area. If this has fallen to the Ukrainians, then Klishchivka must fall within fairly short time. It's not really possible for the Russians to stay in there. And I think it was Ribor a couple of days ago said should Klishchivka fall, they might be forced excuse me, They might be forced to withdraw up to Opitne. So in this regard, the envelopment of Bakhmut from the south would proceed. We are at this point, the Russians are saying the fighting is closing in on Klishchivka. They are sending reinforcements, that the Russians are doing powerful counterattacks, as you would expect from a pro-Russian source. So we don't know how exactly it is, but this is being handed around. This is a video showing Klishchivka from above. And supposedly from the Ukrainian perspective, we see that it's there's a smoke over the town, whether it's the Russians to allow them bringing in reinforcements to cover their withdrawal. The exact reason for that smoke screen is unclear, but this is Klishchivka, and we clearly can see that the video was taken from the ridgeline above, and supposedly this is a Ukrainian cell phone taking the video, but I cannot fully confirm it. But if we cross-reference what we hear from both sides, then it seems to be clear that the Ukrainians are in the trench line. I cannot confirm yet that they have fully secured it. This might still change. They might be successful, they might be pushed out again, but it seems they are clearly creeping closer towards Klishchivka, and that should then force the Russians back to the next ridgeline. They might be able to settle down here, or they might be pushed back towards Odradivka, Opitne, towards this line. We will simply have to see. Regardless of this, the pressure towards Bakhmut is being kept up, and the Russians report continuous Ukrainian attacks. Here at Mayorsk, they are reporting attacks in the direction of Orlivka. It must be somewhere here the attacks are happening. Also Novoselivka here in the north, in that ridgeline. We have some geolocation that indicates that Krasnohorivka, there has been some gained ground there. Not much though, probably like one tree line has been moved. Other than that, Pervomayske, Ukrainian attacks. The Ukrainian attacks are also reported Krasnohorivka, Staromikhailivka in this area, in Marinka, Pobieda, Novomikhailivka. So we have massive Ukrainian attacks, at least in number. The size I cannot confirm. And apart from geolocalized successes at Krasnohorivka, the attacks have so far not proven to be successful, at least from the evidence we have from the cross-referencing of both sides. They seem to have been more or less unsuccessful. We have reports from the border of the oblast, south of Velika Novosilka. We have it here. Again, Voenkor, according to them, the Ukrainians are trying to break through to Uroshaine. So they are attacking down here. If I understand this correctly, but we need to obviously see it's originally in Russian and then Google translate it to English. So I might be misunderstanding here, but from my understanding, they try to break through. They have not been successful yet, even though I'm not 100% sure. Further west, we have reports of successes in Orikhiv. The Ukrainian General Staff is saying they have been successful southwest of Novodanilivka. So more or less they are supposed to have pushed somewhat in this direction, and they have been successful in the direction of Novopoprovka. So here. But probably, again, we are talking about single tree lines that have been captured here. I have not seen visual proof yet. So while the Ukrainians are far more reliable than the Russians, I'm not at a position yet that I can confirm it. I won't simply take a claim by the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense as a fact. But it seems at least likely that they have had some minor successes. Other than that, the situation is more or less the same, both here at Piatichatki, as well as on the Dnipro. The Ukrainians are still on the left bank of the Dnipro, but they have not crossed the last rivers towards Oleshki, or let's call it the mainland. They still have waterways between them, while they have established themselves on the other side of the Dnipro already. But still very small groups. If we summarize now, the situation along the front line isn't too much moving. The Ukrainians are still focusing on diminishing the Russian abilities. Manpower as well as equipment are attacking and trying to have a positive attrition rate, so basically losing far less than the Russians lose. We see it's about probably to happen that Klishchivka will fall. Now it seems actually fairly close. I still cannot give a guarantee. The Russian counterattack might be successful, but should Klishchivka fall, then that should move the front line a little further to the east here. But the biggest news is what Ivan Popov said, because we already talked here in the past that supposedly the Russians have more or less deployed almost all of their reserves. And the only way we can interpret Major General Popov's statements is that there's simply nothing left. So as soon as the Ukrainians have been able to punch through the front line, which so far they have not been able to, but if they are successful with this, then the Russians should at least have a harder time stopping them at all. So we will have to see, and we will stick to this on this channel here. So if you don't want to miss it, hit the subscribe button and the bell icon so you don't miss future videos. This channel is only possible because of the support from viewers like you. If you'd like to support the channel, you can do so by the means in the description. Thank you very much to everyone already supporting. And if you like this video, please hit the thumbs up and leave a comment for the algorithm. What do you think? How far a Ukrainian success is possible? When it might happen? Leave your opinion in the comment section. That's it from me for now. Thank you for watching, and I'll be back.